Welcome back to the Erwin Show, everyone. Today, I'm Alex Erwin, and we're here with
Officer Dave Rudy.
And today, I have a couple of questions for Officer Rudy, and we're just going to have a conversation. Officer Rudy I've known him for a long time, and he's an amazing officer from Beverly Police Department. So let's get into it. Starting off, what made you want to become a police officer, and was there a specific moment or event that solidified your decision?
Well, first off, Alex, thanks for having me on your show. I appreciate it. And yes, I respect you a lot, so this was a easy decision.
Thank you.
One of the thing that really, I've always wanted to be a police officer ever since I was a little kid, and I was doing something else, and when 9/11 happened, I was watching it on TV, and my mom and sister were actually in the city when the towers went down. Yeah. And she had less than 30 seconds to make a phone call. And there was a line at a payphone, and she picked up the phone and she called me and she said, this may be the last time I talk to you. I just want to tell you I love you and I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, there's so much going on here. Like, I have loved ones here and I can't do anything to protect them. I need to do something else. So I was like, okay, so 9/11 was the reason.
Great, that's amazing. And you have an amazing mother, and I'm glad she got the opportunity to call out to you. And
yeah, it was good. I was lucky.
Give you the motivation to kickstart your career.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's good.
So starting off with another question, what's the most challenging thing that you've overcame in your career or faced, and how did you deal with it?
I think what the most challenging is when I first started. I've been a police officer for 22 years. Yeah. And so I've seen really like the ebb and flow of the career and how things have changed, how laws have changed, going back and forth. And the biggest thing that I've seen is that there's been a real kind of love for the police. Right. And then there was a tidal wave of times when people just did not like us at all. Right. And so that was really hard, because even though those folks don't like us, right, they call 911, I'm still coming.
Exactly.
And it's hard when people, to your face, don't want you there. Yeah. And yet, now they're calling and they need your help, and so I'm still going to be there and still do it. That's hard. Mentally, that was kind of tough, but I think we're on an upward swing now, slowly, which is good. So that's nice to see.
And I think you're referring to more like 2020, but at the same time, there was a lot of support. It just was pretty quiet. It wasn't as loud, and I think the tables have turned nowadays. But so another question that I want to ask you was, can you share a story about a time you felt truly proud of the work you do? Just a certain instance or something that happened?
There was a car that was speeding down Santa Monica Boulevard. I used to work night watch a lot, and so we overnights, and probably like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, there was a car that was flying down Santa Monica Boulevard, east toward Beverly Boulevard. And I stopped the car, and it was going really fast. And the father, at the time I didn't know he was going to be a father, jumps out of the car and he yells, "My wife is having a baby right now." And so I basically helped deliver a baby in the front seat of this man's car on Santa Monica Boulevard. Wow. And gives you chills just thinking about it. But it was that was a really proud moment.
That's amazing. And did you connect with the family afterwards? Or you still?
I did connect with the family afterwards. They I haven't talked to them since, and this was actually some time ago. But it was really they asked me what my name was. Right. I don't know if they actually named the baby after me, but I thought, oh my God, what if they do? But that was a good time.
That's amazing. And what's one piece of advice you wish someone had given you when you were younger? If you could tell your younger self one piece of advice, what would you give that young Officer Rudy?
Good question. I think what I would have, probably one thing I would have said is to take more risk when it comes to my future and things. I kind of played it safe in the beginning.
Right.
I listened too much to what others were saying that they thought I should gear my career towards instead of listening to what I wanted to do.
Right.
And I would probably tell myself and to anybody else that it's your life.
It's your life.
It's not anyone else's life, and in the end, you've got to look yourself in the mirror and be proud of who you are, who you've become, what you've done in your life, and the decisions you've made. So, I would definitely say, if you want something, go after it, take the risk.
Right.
At least you tried, you know, and go for it. So, yeah.
The worst guilt is not trying. It's better to try and fail.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Because that sticks in your head.
Yeah.
You know, and you're like, ugh, I could have done that.
Right. So I know you said since you were a kid that you wanted to be a police officer, but if you weren't a police officer, what type of career would you see yourself in?
Probably two things, and they're both completely different.
Right.
One, I would probably want to do something in landscaping. I love the outdoors, and I love working on the yard and that kind of thing. So I'd probably do something like that, or I would probably work in film or something, because I love film a lot too. So I'd probably do that.
Yeah. And I know you mentioned today at Horseman, you had a little situation, and this is situations you encounter every day. So can you just tell us a little bit more about that? What you saw, how you handled it, how you responded, and
So my partner and I, as SROs, were always responding to the various different schools. And when we were at Horace Mann, just walking around the campus, we noticed there was a gentleman walking back and forth on the campus side, and then on the opposite side, just kind of lingering around the school. He had the tattoo. He had a tattoo on his neck here that said sex.
Right.
And so immediately, you know, obviously we're thinking, I hope this is not a sex register at an elementary school. So we went and talked to him, and he was a little bit off, and he was asking for resources, and we provided some resources for him to get him some help. He was not a sex registrant, thank goodness, but he was looking for people he was trying to flag people down to help him.
Right.
So that actually was a good situation that initially could be really bad.
Yeah.
But it actually turned out to it was fine. It was actually good.
Perfect. So is there situations where you know the moral thing to do is to arrest a person or to help this person out or take some action, but the rules that the department may have on you restrict you from doing that? How do you deal with that situation, and can you ever override the rules to do what's morally right, if you know what I mean?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
So you're taught as a police officer right from the beginning that there's what's called the letter of the law, and there's the spirit of the law.
Right.
So the letter of the law is, we're on the street, the speed limit is 35 miles an hour, and we are going to drive pin 35 miles an hour. That is the letter of the law.
Right.
The law states that, I did this, and now the consequence is going to be that. Well, life is not like that, right? So many times, even as a police officer, we live we live in the gray here, right? So there's letter, and then there's the spirit of it, right? Okay, so in a lot of ways, I think since we operate here, not every situation is the same, and so there's always slight variables each way. So if the benefit is that, the outcome is going to benefit this individual and all people are okay here, we can bypass making an arrest. We can bypass this because we have maybe a learning situation. Right. And sometimes the learning situation on someone means more than this, because let's say, Alex, you're flying down the street and you're driving crazy, right, which I know that you would never do, right? But if you did.
If I did.
What we would do is I would probably talk to you. Now, let's say I could arrest you for reckless driving because you were driving so egregiously and so awful. I could do that. But I also could ask you, why are you driving like this? What's going on? I said, well, look, I did this. My mom is not feeling well. I'm rushing to the pharmacy. She needs this medicine, whatever. Okay, well, what looked bad initially, right, is actually you're trying to help the situation out. So I can now say, okay, look, Alex, we're going to try to figure this out. Let me help you. Let's see if we can go calm you down, get you the resources you need.
Yeah.
Okay.
And do you deal with situations like that with young kids every day?
Oh, every day.
Every day. And what advice would you give to, obviously Beverly Hills High School, it's a lot nicer and faster cars than other schools in comparison. And there's a lot of people with loud exhausts and people who want to show off their cars and rev their engines, speed on Santa Monica Boulevard, etc. So what advice would you give to them that they might realize in 5 years that what they're doing is immature, or just what advice would you give to them?
So I understand that the cars look great, they sound good, they're fast, it's exciting, it's great. I personally think their cars look great.
Yeah.
I admire them. There's a lot of the guys that I see here at the school, and I've seen a lot of their cars, and I'm impressed. Yeah. Right? But there's also a big picture here. Yeah. The big picture is a lot of the guys have had their license for 5 minutes. Yeah. They've been driving for 5 minutes, and there are certain situations that in their short life they have not encountered with driving. If you drive over your head, you're going to get hurt. Yeah. If you drive over your head, you could hurt someone else. Yeah. And the aftermath of that situation in itself is lifelong. Yeah. And the repercussions are lifelong. You mean 1 second we're having a great time, we're flying down, and you might hit a pothole, lose control, flip, and now you've just wiped out an entire family.
We saw that with Redding Carey last week during the Christmas parade on Camden.
100% right. 100% right.
I've walked that street many times, and it's weird to think that like 1 minute they're standing there just enjoying their day.
Yes.
The next, their families like are rushing to the hospital.
100%. That's a great example. I'm glad you brought that up. Great example.
Yeah. So, I'm asking this other question. What's your favorite thing about working in Beverly Hills? Obviously, it's the world famous 90210, and what do you love about it? The community. What do you love about it?
Mostly I love the community is great. The people have a lot of support for the police department. It's hard for us to get to. Yeah. None of the police officers actually live in the city. Yeah. We usually all drive over an hour to get here, which is difficult. So when we get here, though, and we're doing our job, and you can see that there's actually support from the residents and the community and that kind of thing, that feels good. Right. That feels good.
Awesome. So how's the transition been from working like daily patrols to more working in the schools now? Obviously, you still do some patrols, but how's the transition been for you, and what have you learned new from that experience?
That's a good question. So I worked in patrol and other aspects kind of in the same bubble for a lot of years. My last job, I was a canine handler for 15 years. So going from doing that into this is a huge transition. Yeah. Huge, and it's a totally different mindset. There's new laws, there's new, the laws really haven't changed, but there are laws about juvenile laws. There are juvenile laws, there are other things that we have to take into account. Things, dealing with the schools and their rules and our rules sometimes are not the same. So there's a lot of give and take. Right. Getting to know the layout of all of these schools. Right. Remembering where certain things at this school is difficult. Yeah. Because your second floor is really not sometimes a second floor. Your third floor is really not. Right. Yeah. A third floor.
I still get confused.
Yeah, it's difficult. So there's a big learning curve.
Right. With 4 different schools.
4 different schools, 4 different layouts.
Right.
And I also want to be sure that, the kids, the staff that live here, work here in this immediate area feel safe, because ultimately that's why I'm here, to offer a resource, to feel safe, to make sure that I am going to be there, God forbid, if something happens or what have you.
Right. And you've been obviously very great. All the students love you.
Oh, good.
You made great connections with a lot of them. You've
Good,
learned,
yeah.
they've learned from you. So it's just a great thing.
Yeah, there are a lot of great people here.
Yeah.
I'm really thankful.
Another question I want to ask is, let's say before a dangerous shift, or you're getting a call that might be something that is like a risky situation where it could be life-threatening potentially. How do you mentally prepare for that, and like how do you feel going into that, and how do you stay calm under that high pressure?
Great question. So if I get a call like that and I'm driving to the situation, I'm playing this in my head.
Right.
So I'm running the situation and some quick possible outcomes, or what I'm going to see when I get there. Now, what I play in my head can be totally different on what I come up to and I see.
Right.
But really, it's all how you've been trained and how you have adapted in your training, because they say under stressful situations, you go back to what you've been trained and how you've been trained it.
Right.
So you may forget everything else, but your brain will kick in.
Right.
And your brain will be like, okay, no, you're going to go here. This is what you have to do. This is what you have to do.
Right.
Thank goodness, I'm like a mess when it comes with things that happen with my kids at home or something.
Right.
But in situations like this, I'm pretty good. I'm very calm. And
trust in your training. Trust that
Yeah.
you know morally the right
Yeah.
thing to do, and that you're trained for this.
correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So that's
And
what you have to do.
has being a police officer helped you? I know you have a few kids, right?
Mhm.
Has being a police officer helped you raising your kids? Or have you learned any lessons? Do they go hand in hand? You learn stuff from parenting to being a police officer, and vice versa?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So there are a lot of hats that we wear. So as a police, it's not just going out, arrest this person, that kind of thing. It's a lot of
Right. Not black and white.
right.
Yeah.
So you use a lot of what your experience is in life to deal with situations, and I draw on that all the time. So all my kids are all different.
Yeah.
So I draw on a lot of my experience with them in these different facets to we're doing this job now. And my experience with, okay, like my kid screwed up and did this, and I had to deal with it like this. Okay, so how are we going to adapt here at the school, and
Right.
that kind of thing. So you really draw from life experience,
Yeah.
and especially doing this.
For sure.
Yeah.
Another question I had is, how do you stay grounded? Obviously, being a police officer, you have a lot of authority. And how do you stay grounded and like humble with this amount of power? Some officers, it's very little, like less than 1% of the officers that would actually abuse this power, and the media would make it look like it's way more.
Mhm.
But how do you and most of the people in your department stay grounded and humble with the amount of power that like you guys have, and use it in a good way?
So I don't know if I would call it, power per se, but I think I would say that, you have the ability to make a decision on whether or not you're going to take away someone's rights and go
Right.
to jail
Right.
is a huge responsibility.
Yeah. Responsibility.
And that responsibility comes and weighs on not just me, but, like you said, 99% of the officers out there,
Right.
and they take that seriously, because if you do it wrong, every single thing that you do is analyzed and criticized.
Right.
So it's a lot of these split-second decisions that you were making are going to be reviewed by a
Right.
lot of people who don't have, say, training and police training, et cetera,
Yeah.
and then they're going to make a judgment on what you did.
Right. When they weren't there in that situation to
Correct.
really know the circumstances.
Yeah. So having that responsibility and taking that, making sure that you're doing it right and
Right.
your heart's in the right place
Right.
while you're doing and making these decisions is really weighs heavily on all of us in the country.
Yeah.
And I'd say around the world who have this job.
Yeah.
seriously.
For sure. So what's one thing that you'd want to tell the public about police officers in general? I know in the last 4 years there have been obviously the defund the police movement, which is completely ridiculous. But I'm really confident that, especially in Beverly Hills, it's 90% support for officers, and it's completely flipped. But I think Beverly Hills has always been pro-police, in my opinion. But what's one thing that you would tell the public about police officers that you just want them to know about your image, your reputation, or just that you guys do good?
Yeah. So, kind of going back to what I said before, we're not just people in the uniform.
Right.
You know, there's men and women who, when we go home, we have maybe a screaming baby that needs to be taken care of. We're coaches. We maybe teach Sunday school. We are active in our church. We're active with coaching, like I said, or we do a lot of other things. And so this is our job, and for a lot of us, it's a passion. And I think that with that passion and that job, like I said, comes great responsibility.
Right.
Because you want to be a great person here, but even outside there, we're normal. Try to be great people on the outside too.
Right.
So, sometimes with the criticism is difficult because we're not much different than everybody else.
Right. Yeah.
We just wear a uniform.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah.
That's awesome. What is your favorite food place in Beverly Hills? Because I know there's a lot of events where officers, donuts. Obviously, you guys love donuts. Is that stereotype? Sure.
It's very true.
Yeah.
It's very true, Alec. We all love donuts.
Okay, I do
My
too.
personal favorite is Randy's down in Inglewood. That's my
I'll keep
favorite.
that in mind.
Yes.
What about vehicles doing donuts? You're not.
Not a
big
huge fan of that.
Not a huge fan
I'm not a fan of those donuts. I'm glad you made the
No
correlation
donuts.
there. That was good. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Randy's Donuts in Inglewood, big fan. Donuts in the Five-Way, not so much.
No.
Okay, I appreciate that. Glad we're putting that out there.
There is a lot of loud exhausts here at Beverly Hills. So my friend Kusha,
Yes.
he got state refereed.
Yes.
How would you help him through that situation? And would you give advice to people who want to have a car like Kusha, or exhaust like his? Would you advise them to take off their catalytic converters or mufflers or something of that sort?
I happen to know Kusha very well,
Yeah.
and I would consider Kusha one of my favorite people.
Yeah.
I understand why Kusha and a lot of the other guys have the cats off and do everything they can. Yeah, I get it. I understand.
Right.
It looks cool. It sounds cool. It's fast. It's exciting.
Yeah.
It's fun. I get it.
Yeah.
However, you're gambling at a young age because what happened to Kusha can happen to any one of you.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
You drive in the carpool lane with only one person in the carpool lane 30 times, right?
Right.
Somebody pulls you over, right?
Yeah.
You can't get mad because you got pulled
Does
over.
Officer Gibbons have she has not the best reputation in the police department, as she's a motorcycle cop. It's okay if you can't speak about it, but would you say that motorcycle cops tend to give more tickets than
So
regular
Officer
police
Gibbons, he is very good at his job.
Yes.
He is one of our best. He loves his job.
Yes.
And majority of what he wants to do is educate people.
Right.
So he's a great officer. There's another, you said a female officer, motor.
Yes.
She is also an excellent motor officer, and she wants nothing more to basically educate and stop people from driving over their head so they don't hurt somebody.
Right.
That's their main goal is
Right.
traffic enforcement.
And it's good to have even very strong figures and tough figures like that, because it promotes a little bit of fear when a kid wants to maybe do something stupid. It can help them realize that it's not the right thing to do, and they can get in trouble for it.
They can get in trouble for it
Knowing that
because
you're being watched.
Yeah, because ultimately, not saying that those specific equipment issues and these violations that are put onto their car are going to necessarily hurt someone. That is not going to hurt someone.
Yeah.
It's the operator behind the wheel
Right.
and enhancing performance, enhancing this. If you don't have the experience behind it, again, you hurt a family or something and you go out of control,
Right.
your life as you know it is ultimately affected, and never mind, I mean, theirs is completely affected.
Right.
So
And it may not seem like it, but they actually have your best interest in mind. If
the
you-
motor officers definitely have everybody's best interest in mind, because they're out there, they care about the safety and traffic for the city. And you may not know it, and you may not think, and a lot of people watching this may not think it, but Officer Gibbons and Officer Contreras, they truly do care about all of the people here, and
I
they just
believe
want
that,
you to be safe.
Because they wouldn't take that job otherwise.
That's right.
know?
No, for sure.
Sure. So, Kaden to see me, please put your muffler back on, and maybe and your cats too. So, yeah.
There
and,
we go.
Maybe a couple more questions, and we're gonna wrap up here.
Okay.
What's the best way to decompress after a very hard day? So let's say you have a 10-hour shift. Is that something that you guys may have, or 12?
Yep.
So
10 or 12 and a half hour.
okay, 12 and a half. So after a rough 12 and a half hour shift, let's say you got 20 different situations you're handling. You're the middleman. You got a divorced wife, arguments, a hostile situation, something like that. How do you decompress after all that chaos during your day, and how do you go home and be the best? I know it's hard.
It is hard.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. It's very hard. It's very, very hard. And I need, because like I said before, I drive to get here every day. I drive about 45 minutes to an hour to get here in the morning.
Right.
I'll drive anywhere from an hour and 15 minutes to over 2 hours to go home at night. And so after sitting in the car, having a long day, it's long. Yeah. So I need time to just decompress. And that to me is, I take my dog when I get home for a really long walk.
Right.
No social media, no online.
That's
just
more chaos. And
I don't. Exactly. I don't even want to see it.
Yeah.
I will usually after work. I'll usually go to the gym after work, and that usually helps a lot before I even start driving.
Yes.
That helps a lot.
I believe the gym is a very helpful habit to improve your self-confidence.
Yeah.
Like starting something and finishing until the end, and be stronger and tough. It's a tough world. So
they eat like you. They'll be really strong.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Is there anything else that you wanted to add from your experience or advice to Beverly Hills High School students, or anything in general that you want to add?
I think the last thing I'll say is what we started with. I'll just kind of go in full circle. Is a lot of people may tell you in life what they think you should do, and I think this is how you should handle this, or should be your career path. And take it from me, for someone who's had that experience, although their advice may be well intended, if there's something that you want to do that may not be on their list, go for it.
Don't let anyone hold you back from doing what
just
you
do
really
it.
want to
Just do your best to do it, and grind.
Right.
Because in a lot of ways, you're not going to get there until you grind.
Right.
And the grind is part of the journey.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when you get there, you appreciate it more.
Right. And I think a problem with is a lot of people, they know they want to do something good in the world or be successful, but they don't know exactly what they want to do, but they know they want to do something. So what advice would you give to them in trying new things, or whatever?
Try new things, read about things, do your own research on things. There's a book on everything.
Right.
You can do whatever you want. Talk to people in those professions.
Right.
People love to talk about what they do.
Yeah.
They love to talk about themselves. They love to give advice.
Yeah.
So if there's something you want to do, ask that person, hey, how did you get into this? What advice would you give to me?
Right.
Who just am starting out?
Yeah.
You got the Erwin show here.
Yeah.
Right? So, you see Joe Rogan walking down the road. My question for him would be, I want to do this. I had worked in high school. This is what I'm doing in high school. what would be your advice to kick me into the next level?
Right. And I think realizing that someone like Joe Rogan or whatever celebrity athlete you think, they're not that much different than you are. They're not.
No, they're not.
At some point, they were in your position.
100%. They grinded.
They grinded, and they took steps. They knew what they wanted, and they did everything in their life to get themselves to that point.
100%. You're absolutely right.
All right. Thank you so much for being
Thank
here
you.
today.
Thanks a lot, man.
Myself and on behalf of Beverly Hills High School, we're very appreciative for what you guys do every day, putting your lives on the line for us. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Appreciate it, Alex, very much.
Thank you. This was the Erwin Show. We'll be back soon. Thank you so much for everyone to tuning in. And Officer Rudy. Yeah.
Thank you.
We're good? All right. Thank you. All right. Thank you. That was really good, I think.
Yeah,
Thank
but
you.
it was good.
Awesome.